We are on the 7th lecture of the 6th chapter. We'll get started. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandathami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetam Rutaduhe Namaha Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedhai Sangapadakramopanisadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Datkatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam na vidhusura suraganaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha Sarvadharman parityajya Mamekam sharanam vraja Aham tva sarva papebhyah Mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. So we are on the 6th chapter, which is the chapter on meditation. And as we're going deeper into this aspect of meditation, we realize that this activity, what we call as meditation, is something which is controlled by both external factors and very much our internal factors. And meditation is actually a lot more than just shutting your eyes, sitting straight, but it is really an evolutionary technique. It is a technique by which I get to recognize my ultimate self. All these days, what I have been thinking that I am, that needs to be shattered. And the only way I can do that is after listening to all the scripture and the knowledge which is there in our Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita, then when I sit down, that is when I get a chance to actually contemplate. I get to do what we call this as a technique called mananam, where I'm really processing all this information in my mind, and I'm trying to understand all these things that I've heard so far. Is that really true? Is that something that is really applicable to me? So these are the aspects that I try to go through in Mananam. And once that doubts, which the mind just keeps throwing up, all the time, the mind keeps throwing up these things to make us really understand the goal of meditation. Once all that is quietened down by rationalizing it with the mind, then we come to Nididhyasanam, which is what the ultimate stage of meditation is. So this chapter gives you all those factors, and you can see it is the 6th chapter out of the 18 chapters. But the purpose for it is that this is the final step of really breaking down this notion of who I am. And that is why you see that meditation chapter so nicely positioned in this 18 chapters. So for the reflection time, I thought we could think about, because we did shlokas 10 to 12 last week, about the time and the place to do meditation. Now, the reason why I bring this up is last week, when I finished the session on meditation, I had mentioned about how in Bhagavad Gita and the interpretation of Bhagavad Gita, where the place and time for meditation is indicated that it has to be in a solitude, and also more importantly, the time should be very early in the morning, or at least the very first activity that I need to do before I get into my hurry-burry of things and my running around and chasing things. Before all that, I need to do this. So that's the kind of the time we talked about. So Ajanta, who actually watches this on YouTube she saw this and she said, well, I don't really have time in the morning because I have to go to work at 5:30. I do get up at 4:15 a.m., but it's hard for me to sit down at that time. But I'm extremely regular with doing my meditation practice in the nights. Is that okay? Or is that something which I should not be doing? Well, the answer is, if you have been doing regularly at a certain time and you're simply unable to do it in the morning when it is actually most preferable, but if you are doing it in the night, well, at least that has now formed a habit for you, and it allows one to sit in one position at a particular time and calm my mind down. So that's what one would say is when I do meditation at a later time in the day. And this calming down is also extremely necessary, because only when the mind is calm will my intellect give me more things for me to ponder upon. So from that point, doing it in the night and habitually doing it at least makes one person sit down. So that is good. But then does it really lead you to the higher flights of meditation? I would say that it's kind of very difficult to do that, because at the end of the day, or as I said, at the end of the day, the bottom line is the mind does throw all these impressions of the whole day which you've gone through. So from that point, it would be hard for us to go deeper into meditation when I do it at a later time in the day, because all these impressions, what I've gathered, everything will come to disturb me. And the mind doesn't have the strength or the vigor to remain alert. So that is a key thing. Alertness is very necessary for meditation. And that alertness can happen only after a good night's sleep. A good night's sleep where the previous day I have actually packed everything, put it away, and I'm having a good night's sleep. That's when it happens. Another thing, which is also something which we have to recognize, which Ajanta brought up, is that she said, well, I feel at the evening, my lower chakras vibrating, and it's a very soothing feeling. And also my meditation is really good during a full moon day or in a pradosham day. During that time, I really, it's a good, I get some really deep meditation. So the aspect of meditation that is talked about in 6th chapter is for sure not about chakra meditation or any other meditation that can lead you to have any benefits. So sometimes people may say, well, I get the benefit of having seen, I have some strange experiences. That is not necessarily, that is not what the 6th chapter is talking about. The 6th chapter meditation is purely based upon this meditation of quietening the mind, quietening the intellect, and allowing one to be one with our true nature. That is what the 6th chapter is aiming towards. So I just wanted to put that as a reflection for today. Any other questions or thoughts on this line of time and place to do meditation? Okay. So let's move on. Today we'll move on to shlokas 12 to 15. And before that, we will chant the 10 shlokas. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Shashtodhyayah Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Anashrita Karma Phalam Karyam Karma Karoti Yaha Sasanyasi Cha Yogi Cha Na Niragnir Na Chakriyah Yam Sanyasamiti Prahuhu Yogam Tam Vidhi Pandava Nahya Sanyasta Sankalpaha Yogi bhavati kaschana arurukshor munir yogam karma karana muchyate yoga rudhasya tasyaiva shamakarana uchyate yada hinendriyartheshu na karma svanushajyate sarva sankalpa sanyasi yoga rudhastadochyate uddharedatmanatmanam Natmanam avasadayet Atmaiva hyatmano bandhuhu Atmaiva ripuratmanaha Bandhuratmatmanastasya Yenatmaiva atmana jitaha Anatmanastu shatrutve Vartetatmaiva shatruvat Jitatmanah prashantasya Paramatma samahitaha Shitoshna sukha dukkheshu tatha manapamanayoho jnana vijnana triptatma kutastho vijitendriyaha yukta ityuchyate yogi samaloštashma kanchanaha suhrun mitra yudasina madhyastattveshya bandhushu sadhushvapi cha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate. So we, up to here, we talked about all the external factors. And then starting from the shloka number 10, where we are preparing ourselves for meditation, we started seeing about what are all those variables that really affects our mind. So I put this up last time to show that even in a very simple manufacturing process, you have so many different variables. So you can imagine our mind, where it is hit in so many different directions, and especially with in this day and age, where communication, even through WhatsApp or emails or phones, where we have so many multiple channels from where all this information is sort of bombarding our mind. How do I really keep them in control? How do I really hold them away? So for that, in this 6th chapter, he comes up very clearly with sort of, the 8 stages. We started looking at that last time, where one of them he talks about is the place of meditation, like we just addressed that a little bit. But the place of meditation, which is, and then the time of meditation, the asanam, how should the meditation seat be? How should the posture of the body be? And how should my second kosha, which is pranamaya kosha, how should that be aligned? And then how should the sense organs, how do I control the sense organs? How do I control my mind? And then finally, how do I bring that conviction of the intellect? Very, very powerful. Ultimately, the intellect has to be convinced that has to be convinced of the identity of who I am. So for that, we went through all these 8 steps last time, where we said the place of meditation has to be very, very controlled. It's a controlled place. It has to be a place where it is free of any kind of distractions. So, and then we said the time of meditation, which is, again, we said it's there in the morning, but then at any other time is also not a bad idea, because that will allow one to at least get into a habit of quietening my mind down. So sometimes some people like to take, every hour on the hour, take a few minute break and just close my eyes and to calm myself down. Great idea. And over a period of time, the mind gets habituated, as I said, to sit. That is the whole idea. And then meditation seat, again, very important, because you want to choose a seat which is not too soft, not too hard, and somewhere where I can just sit and forget that I even have a seat. So that is the whole idea of meditation seat. And then posture of the body, we will be addressing that in the shlokas today. And then breathing is an important aspect, even though directly it is not addressed in the 6th chapter. A little bit was talked about in the 5th chapter, but idea being that control of the breath is very important. And first, the breath is controlled, we work on the breathing in order to control, and then ultimately the breathing helps the mind to become calm. So they kind of go hand in hand. And then Indriya Nigraha, sense control, not allowing my eyes to wander away in looking at things. So, which is why closed eye meditation is preferred. And then Mano Nigraha, again, mind control, and then Nishaya. So we did all this. We looked at it in part of it. And the reason I again put this up is it's a nice kind of a checklist for me to recognize, what are the things which is bothering me, and at least take care of all those things. So then in shloka number 10, we saw about both the environment and the mind. So that is what was talked about here, about how, in fact, one should look at this shloka from the backwards, in the sense, in order. So if we think about it, from a backward standpoint, what I was going to say is, first, he's saying that the mind has to be kept steady. So then how do I keep the mind steady? Well, the only way I can do it is by remaining in solitude. If I keep myself completely in a quiet place, which is free of distractions and everything, I can be quiet. But then in order for the mind to be quiet, in order for me to sit quietly, I have to make sure that my mind and body is controlled, right? So therefore, I take care of my ekaki yata chittatma. I keep my mind and my body very controlled. I don't allow it to, again, wander and everything. But then the question comes is, why does the mind wander? And why is the body unable to maintain that quietude? So you have both at the mental level and at the physical level, our mind constantly is wandering around, which is with something or the other. My mind is just not allow myself to sit down. It's always anxious about something or the other. What if this happens to me? Or, what if this happens to my people around me, my close people? And the other thing is that the mind is never satisfied. It is constantly wanting to get up and do something to satisfy itself. So both at the physical level and at the mental level, these things have to be controlled. So backwards, if I'm free from anxiety and greed, then my mind and body is automatically controlled. And when that happens, it is very easy for me to be in solitude. And when I'm in solitude, then my mind is steady. So one can look at it from that point of view. And ultimately, a steadiness of the mind is really the most important thing for us in order for me to go deeper into meditation. So these are the things that we already saw. I'll move on to shloka number 11. So in shloka number 11, the aspect of the seat of meditation was discussed. And here he talks about how the seat, in those days, of course, like we talked about, they didn't have plastic, or they had natural stuff, organic, cloth, skin, and grass. Of course, skin may not constitute as an organic thing, but nevertheless, the idea here is the cloth and the skin. So first you have this grass, and then on top of that, you have the skin of a dead animal, and then on top of that, a cloth. Now we can, of course, substitute with whatever we find ourselves comfortable here. And then the next one is na ati uchritam, na ati nicham, where we talked about how the seat can be, should not be too high or not too low. Also indicating about where I'm sitting. Am I sitting in my basement, or am I sitting on the in my attic? You don't want to sit on your attic, nor do you want to sit in the basement. And of course, from a seat perspective, you want to make sure that the seat is just right, where you can keep your feet firmly on the ground, and and one is comfortable. So that is what na ati uchritam na ati nicham, and stiram asanam atmanaha. Totally where my body is sitting completely on the seat, which does not allow me to, swing backward, forward, right, left, all of that. That's why stiram is important. And of course, it has to be in a place which is totally free of any kind of distractions. So we saw all this. And now moving on to shloka number 12. So now I'm established, I'm sitting firmly on my meditation seat. What am I supposed to do? That is the question this shloka is asking us to do. It is essentially telling us about how what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to literally quieten this mind down. I need to quieten this mind down because the mind loves to really go anywhere where its imagination can take one to, right? Ultimately, everything is in its place, everything is going well, but our mind makes us really think that something is not right, or I should be doing something more. At the end of the day, at the stage of life where many of us are, things are actually, everything is going how it should be going. We can actually take the time to totally relax and be in touch with our own inner self. But the mind doesn't allow us to do that. So it does what I'm saying here, which is Tatraikagram mana kritva, Tatraikagram mana kritva, Yata chittendriya kriyaha, Yata chittendriya kriyaha, Upavishyasane yunjat, Upavishyasane yunjat, Yogam Atma Vishuddhaye, Yogam Atma Vishuddhaye. So, because our mind tends to go in different places, this shloka is basically reminding us, now that you have firmed up your meditation seat and you're sitting down, the next thing I have to do is prepare this mind. So how do I prepare it? I prepare it by making it totally single-pointed. So I use techniques to make it totally single-pointed. That is the whole idea, because at the end of the day, this, like I said, the energy which is there in the mind, it can just leak away just like that. So for that, I need to keep the mind single-pointed. Upavishyasane yunjyat yogam atma vishuddhi. So we do the single-pointed meditation so that can lead to a purification of my intellect. Here, the self actually refers to the intellect, and we will touch upon what it means. So two things here. One is practice single-pointedness, and second thing is, the reason why I practice single-pointedness is because there are many ways by which this mind can trick me, can take me to places where I shouldn't go. So I put this example of something which I remember when I was a kid, my uncle used to demonstrate this for me. He would take this lens and he would, burn this paper because of the rays of the sun, the heat of the sun. So that's how this ekagram, which is mentioned here, the single-pointedness, we get literally, meditation is this lens here. When you see all these rays of the lens, right? So the meditation just basically takes that energy which is there in the mind and just makes it single focused in such a way that it can focus on my object of meditation. So that is the way that this ekagram word works. the idea is bring the entire energy, what can go in my mind, and not allowing it to dissipate in so many different ways, but just focusing all that energy and making it single pointed, making it, trying more and more and more to make it single pointed. And why is it necessary? Because ultimately, when my and here again the words mind and intellect can be used sort of two ways. The higher form of the mind is, of course, the intellect. Now this intellect has three different kinds of impurities. We call this mala, vikshepa, and avarana. So mala is the impurities like we have in our, which is, the various things like whether it's greed or envy or any kind of values which makes me so extroverted in the world. So that is all mala. It is all this mala that makes me think who I'm not. And that needs to be taken care of first. So that mala is typically taken care of by, in the what we saw in the third chapter, through karma yoga. Through karma yoga, we really see how this mind can be really cleaned of all these impurities and anything which makes me think that I am this this single person, this finitude, we call this finitude, or makes me think that I'm this finite person. In reality, I am this infinite consciousness, but my mind makes me think I am this finite person in this finite body, which is, as Sunitha, for example, and makes me run around everywhere just trying to see how Sunitha can be satisfied. So that is the mala part of it. And this can be taken care of through karma yoga. The next one is vikshepa. Vikshepa basically is also allowing the mind to get distracted. Vikshepa. So we always say this whole aspect of Maya, is nothing but a distraction for us. And that is vikshepa. So this vikshepa can actually totally be taken care of when I have bhakti. Because through bhakti, I recognize that at the end of the day, it is only that Lord which is everywhere. So then my mind starts to calm down. So, but vikshepa makes my mind distracted. Bhakti allows me to take care of this vikshepa. So once I've taken care of this mala and vikshepa, then there is something called this covering, avarana. Avarana means covering. And this covering basically prevents me from recognizing what my true self is. And therefore, even though I must have done a lot of shravanam and mananam and everything, ultimately this avarana can be removed only through complete nididhyasanam. So actually nididhyasanam is that state where I'm in touch with my own self. But this avarana, that the final stage of removing that whole thing is called, of removing that veil which covers my true self, which is avarana, can be removed through nididhyasanam. So that is the whole reason why we start off with first understanding what are the impurities I have, how do I get rid of it, find out what, how my mind is getting distracted, taking care of distractions. And finally, the ultimate thing, which is even removing this aspect of who I am. So that renouncing of the ego, which we talked about in the beginning of the 5th chapter, that is what avarana means. Avarana is ultimately removing even this notion that I am this Sunitha. So the purpose of meditation is therefore, once, mala, of course, like we said, with karma yoga, vikshepa is taken care of by the bhakti, and avarana ultimately is the meditation. So that is really the ultimate goal of meditation. And that is what will lead to Atma Shuddhaye. Atma, which is in this case, is referring to the intellect, the purification of the intellect is the ultimate thing that one goes through. So this reason why we need to purify the intellect is it leads ultimately to, if you remember the last stage, which I showed in that 8 stages, which is Buddhi Nishchaya. Buddhi Nishchaya, which is to be totally convinced ultimately, I am not the Sunitha. I'm taking this role of Sunitha. I am taking this role of whatever I've taken up in order to exhaust my vasanas. For that reason, this role has been given to me so that I exhaust them and I don't take on any more new vasanas. So that intellect needs to be convinced at that point in time, and that is the idea behind this shloka. So that's why the shloka Tatrik Kaga Manakritva is such an important thing. So all this can happen only through a pure understanding and translating that understanding to everything what I do, and finally sitting down. And that is very important. So for somebody who is extremely rajasic, having chasing things and doing a lot of things, for such a person, it is very hard for them to sit down for meditation because mind has not been given that time to sit down. Like even for a simple instrument, if you keep on running it, it's going to fail, right? So you have to let it sit, you have to turn off the machine, allow it to cool down. And it is during the cooling period is when you really get more energy, right? And then the instrument is ready for action. But then if I'm continuously doing all the time, which again, in this day and age, with the amount of distractions leading to so much amount of mental stress, it is almost impossible to practice something like what is said here, which is where the prescription is taking care of, all the impurities, and then not allowing my mind to be distracted and thinking that, I am this finite person, and ultimately removing even that aspect of finitude ultimately. So in that sense, this shlokas are reminding us constantly and in one shot, giving you such a beautiful prescription for taking care of our stress, as and letting us really go deeper into meditation. So the depth of meditation is possible only when I'm convinced that I'm not this body, mind, intellect equipment. So now, Lord Krishna, having explained the seat of meditation and then also telling us what I should be doing by being single-pointed, now next he's talking about the posture. And that was one of the stages we talked about. So keeping in mind that meditation is not like how I would take a journey in a train or a plane to go somewhere to achieve something in the external world, but meditation is something, it's an inward journey. So it is a journey for me to slow down. It's a journey for me to quieten and negate everything but really who I am. And therefore, it is also important for me to take this physical body, like a body is like a car, we take a car to go to the groceries, to Meijer or Costco or anything. But at some point, I have to keep the car in good shape. I have to keep the car in my garage. So that's what the Shloka 13 is about. It's about what do I do with this body in meditation. Samam kaya shiro grivam. Samam kaya shiro grivam. Dharayanna chalam sthiraha. Dharayanna chalam sthiraha. Samprekshya nasikagram swam. Samprekshya nasikagram swam. Dishashchanavalokayan. Dishashchanavalokayan. So this shloka is now talking about the body posture. We already addressed the seat of meditation. Now he's coming to what and how should I maintain this body. So he says samam. Samam meaning straight. Samam can also mean equal, but here it means keeping it straight. What do I keep it straight? So here the word for body, what is used here is kaya. Kaya means his physical body, or he calls it as trunk. Kaya, Shiraha, Shiraha, the head and the neck. All these, of course, we have a number of yoga asanas, which also tells us about how I should practice exercises for my neck and head so that it's always straight. It's amazing these days how much, we take this phone and we are constantly watching it like this. When I'm watching, my head and neck is in a certain position, and this I'm noticing in my own university campus here, how many of the students are getting this spondylitis or fibromyalgia and those kind of things, mainly because our body, we have been so used to just not taking care of it. So here he's really saying about how posture is very important, because if I have a good posture of sitting, then that is one aspect that is taken care of. So Shiraha, Grivam, Dharayan, Chalam. Chala means movement. Achalam means non-movement or being firm. So being firm, and stiraha, very steady. And then Samprekshya Nasikagram Swam. Now here, if you go by the direct meaning, you may say that, well, in my meditation, does that mean I have to keep my eyes open and then look at my nose? No, we'll come to that as to how how Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya, has given that beautiful interpretation, of course, and how we see it is very logical what he's trying to say. And then Nasika Gram Swam, Dishash Cha Anavalokayan. Dishash Cha, all directions, not looking around. So many different things. He's saying sit straight, keep your neck and everything in a straight line, and then make sure your gaze is pointed, and then don't look around. So that's the thing what he's trying to say here. So the very first thing then automatically we can think about is, is the shloka trying to say that there's only one particular way that I have to sit, which is here I've shown you a picture of a sadhu, sitting with his legs in a particular yoga pose, but then his neck and this is to be sitting. As I said, yes, it is very important as far as our neck and head and everything to be in a straight line. And this, of course, it's not something that I practice in my meditation, sit that way. Second. Adiyo, na iniki pohale. Thank you. Iniki na Varim Road pole. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Right, nan parela. Thank you. So the question is, do I have to sit in a certain way? So to practice my head and neck, so that when I'm sitting in meditation, I'm able to sit properly. So that's the whole idea. And again, we talked about sitting firmly on the body means not that the body has to be stiff. Again, the idea is to relax the body. And whatever it takes to relax a body, that is what it should be meant here. And then sitting firmly is not to be able to swing up and down, right, left, all that stuff. So that is the idea what he's trying to say here. So samam kaya shiro grivam, which is, like I already said, keeping the head and shira and neck in a straight line. Nothing, just basically that. And it doesn't matter what profession we are, we should try to do this. Now, more important, what does the gazing in the tip of nose mean? So does he mean that, we should really open our eyes and then make sure that I'm, gazing at the tip of the nose? No. What essentially he's trying to say is, once the idea is that the mind has to be single pointed. And in order for the mind to be single pointed, I have to give the mind and kind of direct my sense organs, mainly the eyes, to one place. So even though my eyes are closed, I can actually, just use this posture of getting my hand to my nose, or if I'm able to just see where my tip of the nose is and I close my eyes, then my mind just starts to focus on in front of me. Keeping the tip of the nose is just a point for focusing. But if I'm not able to do that, this is the other way where you can just bring your hand to this. So again, this is all just psychological ways in which to focus the mind on the tip of the nose. So the idea is now, again, sitting down, keeping the body, everything in a straight line, and then allowing my mind to focus in front of me. Now, if I didn't go through this action, my mind will again start to wander around, right? So like this beautiful example that Swami Chinmayananda also gives, it's so there's this farmer. He has this 4 or 5 of his cows, and he finds that one of the cows seems to always is getting lost. So then he goes to this particular Rishi, Swamiji, and then asks, what do I do about this? How can I make sure this this cow doesn't get lost? And actually, he did not. He had only 4 ropes. He had five cows, but he had only 4 ropes. He didn't have one of them. So he was wondering, how can I make this cow stand still without a rope? So this Swamiji tells him, well, do this, just go in front of the cow and then pretend as if you're tying the cow with this rope. Take the cow to the post and make him do that, just do that. So he does that. And lo and behold, and then when he goes to sleep in the night and he gets up in the morning, he finds all the cows are right there. None of the cows had, walked away. And of course, the cow which didn't have the thread, also the rope did not walk away or go away. But then when he tries to make him move, he finds that the cow is not moving. And then he goes back to the Swami and he says, what happened? Why is my cow not moving? There is no rope around his neck. And the Swamiji says, well, untie him. He says, how can I untie him? There is no rope to untie him. Then he says, no, go and do the same motions that you did to tie him, and then use the motions to untie him. So he does that, and then the cow starts walking away. So this is all just a way to, to psychologically, you can give these auto suggestions. So this gazing the tip of the nose is also kind of an auto suggestion. We are telling our mind an auto suggestion on how I should focus. So everything is about the mind, where the mind is, by itself just wanders away. So I'm telling the mind, no, we're going to be quiet. And this is how you're going to do it. You're just going to focus on this tip of my nose. And so when I do that, the mind automatically listens to me and it starts to gaze at the tip of the nose. So that's the idea behind this. Now, achalam stiraha. Again, the idea being here, which is I'm allowing my sense organs to remain quiet. It's not moving everywhere. So it is just very straight. It is just firm. And I'm just withdrawing it from everywhere. And very important, anavalokayan. Anavalokayan, that is not looking around. Because again, our eyes, our ears, our nose, and that's why they say don't have your meditation seat or your puja room next to your kitchen, which in most of the households in India, at least, it is always next to the kitchen. And to have it so that way the eyes and ears and everything is not wandering away. And this is kind of an important thing which we see, where basically it just indicates a kind of a mental restlessness, isn't it? And we know that even when you go for a simple interview or anything, the one thing that we always, you are always looking for in the candidate is, how, is this person eyes wandering around or anything, indicating, maybe there's a confusion in the mind or something. If a person is very clear in the mind, that person is very, clear in their focus and everything. So Anavalokayan, even in a regular world, is an important attribute. But then what to talk about meditation? In meditation, it's this idea of having all the five sense organs, not moving around and just completely focused on the object of meditation. So that's what the shloka means here. So to be able to sit straight, keeping the neck, head in one angle, and then firmly keeping all the sense organs controlled, and to have them all focus in front of me. And this is the way to make the mind single-pointed. So now we have talked about how do I quieten the body, and in some sense of how do I quieten my breath. Now that he has mentioned about the tip of the nose and having the mind single-pointed, now the question will come on, what am I meditating upon? That is important, right? I'm not meditating on just the tip of the nose and just leaving it there, but I need to meditate upon something beyond that. But I'm just using the tip of my nose as a psychological attempt to meditate, right? So that's the part which he's talking about, how I'm training the mind to have the willpower to focus. So why is that needed? Because the mind, gets basically disturbed by all kinds of disturbances of the past, present, and future. The past, I may have some regrets or bitterness or anger, irritation, all this can surface in my meditation. And the more, as I mentioned already, the kind of distractions in the present, we don't even need to mention it. We already know what they are. And of course, the future, the anxieties of the future, all these things also has a big effect on why the mind gets disturbed. And therefore, I need to bring the mind to a focus and on a particular object. So let's see what that is. Prashantatma vigata bhihi, Prashantatma vigata bhihi, Brahmachari vrate sthitaha, Brahmachari vrate sthitaha, Manas sanyamya machittaha, Manas sanyamya machittaha, Yukta asita matparaha, Yukta asita matparaha. So the idea is to be able to focus on that matparaha. Matparaha, where I am regarding that aspect of myself, of that same supreme consciousness. So that is my ultimate object of meditation. And for this, the only way that can happen where the mind is totally in control, it is not focusing on the past, present, or future, is when I make the mind prashanta or very calm-minded, prashantatma, very important. My mind has to be in a calm state. For me, for my meditation to work, for my meditation to be successful, my mind has to be in a state of prashanta. And very important, it has to be fearless. Vigata bihi. Vigata bihi, fearless. And the third thing, which is, it has to be in a state of brahmacharya. Brahmacharya. Now, we'll again analyze each one of these words. So, calm personality, vigata bihi, brahmacharya. In that sense, when my mind is in that state, then firm in the va, having controlled the mind, thinking of me, machittaha, thinking of me, it's capitalized, indicating again, thinking of that essence of really who I am, yukta asita matparaha. So balance, let him sit, having that supreme reality as the only goal. So when I do that, that leads me to get into the deeper aspects of meditation. So serenity of mind, fearlessness, all these are important. And having that absolute, you can see that aspect of bhakti also is coming in here, because bhakti of allowing my mind to focus on that higher. So the prerequisites of a meditator is what we're looking at here, which is prashantatmas. A person has to be calm, quiet, and a deep person indicating somebody who doesn't get ruffled. And the word deep, you can compare it to an ocean, an ocean on the surface has got so many waves going up and down, but whereas in the depth, it's very calm. It's the same ocean. So here the idea is to identify myself with that quietness, with that depth of the ocean. So Prashantatma, which is quiet, calm, and a deep person. And only when this person's mind is that calm, that deep, can meditation be really successful. If my mind is disturbed with everything that's happening in the world, then it is impossible to get to that state of calmness. So that is the first requisite. Second thing is fear, being absolutely fearless. Again, he's talking at the height of fearlessness, which is, the biggest fear that possibly, somebody who's going deep into meditation is, that he's going to lose his identity. Ultimately he might think, oh, what happens if I totally lose my identity? Who am I then? I'm nobody. That is the ultimate fear that one can have it. So here he's trying to say, Vigata Bihi, that the person who is getting into the state of meditation has conquered even that highest fear about who he is. There is absolutely no sense of duality at all for him. And this is sometimes a very scary thought. Many, many times for us, we always want to be different. We want to be unique. We train our children to be unique. But here the idea is there is no such thing as uniqueness. There is no such thing as different. So once I have that point of view, then I'm totally fearless. Now, what is brahmacharya? So many times people think, brahmacharya means totally abstinence from sex and everything. But here, the meaning of brahmacharya is a lot more than that. Here, it is, in a sense, at the level of control of the body, where I'm so much in control of my body that I do not allow it to, indulge in anything, the things that all my five sense organs are used to. Like the famous saying, enjoy the world, but let not the world enjoy you. Eat food, but let not the food eat you. Drink, but let not the drink drink you. That, in a sense, is what brahmacharya is all about. Brahmacharya is, the eyes always wants to see beautiful things. The nose is always looking for, smelling great fragrances or perfumes. The mouth wants always good food, and the ear wants to always listen to, good things, good music or anything, or basically music of its own thing. But here brahmacharya is being in control of everything. Not that we should not enjoy any of them, but if I don't have it, I should be able to be totally happy, because my mind has now recognized the fact, and the mind is totally totally convinced with the knowledge that everything in the world is temporary. All these things which have come to me is because of my own vasanas, which are also very temporary, which I need to give up. And therefore, brahmacharya is a very important aspect also as a quality to go into meditation. So now coming to shloka number 15, he gives us very, really, again, a little more information about the object of meditation, how this can be different for different people, different, not in the sense, ultimately it is the one and the same reality, the same consciousness. It is our own relation with that object. So He'll talk at that about a little bit, and let's chant the shloka. Yunjannevam sadatmanam, Yunjannevam sadatmanam, Yogi niyatamaanasaha, Yogi niyatamaanasaha, Shantim nirvana paramam, Shantim nirvana paramam, Matsamstam adhigacchati, Matsamstam adhigacchati. So here he is again referring to that paramam, that highest state of liberation, that supreme consciousness, that itself is that state of liberation. So that's what he's referring to here. Shantim, and that state of liberation, Nirvana Paramam, is of the nature of peace. Shantim, Shantim Nirvana Paramam. And how do we get there? By always, Sada, always Sada, Yunjan Evam Atmanam, always keep the mind balanced, Yunjan, and keep it engaged. Yogi Niyata Manasaha, the yogi with his mind controlled, he keeps the mind balanced and attains that peace, which is a high state of liberation. And thus, by abiding in that peace, he recognizes that this is what he has attained. So, Yunjan Evam Sadatmanam, Yogi Niyata Manasaha, Shantim Nirvana Paramam, Matsamstam adhigacchati. He very easily reaches that particular peace. So ultimately, that source of peace itself is nothing but that Lord, and that Lord can be in the form of the absolute reality, or that reality in the form of Saguna Brahman or Ishvara. That is what I meant to say as, and just focusing on that object of the Lord just leads me to that absolute peace, which is the ultimate object of meditation. So that is that's the beauty of this verse here. Yunjan evam sadatmanam yogi niyatamanasah shantim nirvana paramam mat samstam adhigacchati. So keeping that mind always balanced and keeping that mind always controlled, one can easily just glide into that peace. Just like how the example which is always given is, when my mind is completely calm, I can just, and I just, lay my body on the bed, then I don't know when I have fallen asleep, because the mind just automatically leads us there. And I have no idea where I was when I was sleeping. It's the same thing with this thing, where ultimately I reach that peaceful state, which is really my true self. So I'll leave you with this one beautiful quote here, something for us to ponder upon. Nothing in this world which is but a 2-minute dream is worth worrying about. This is Swami Chinmayananda's quote. I thought that was just so beautiful. Nothing in the world is worth worrying. Ultimately, it is nothing but a 2-minute dream. Not only nothing in this world which is but a 2 minute is worth worrying, not only stop being pestered by outer world, but remain untouched by all the inner emotions and fears. Again, Vigata Bihi, that shloka there. Then nothing can bother thee, storm their peaceful life. So just a beautiful quote here to say that at the end of the day, in this world, nothing is worth worrying about. So what is stopping me from doing the meditation? So let's stop here. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om, everyone.
Hari Om, Sunitha ji. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hari Om, everyone.
Hari Om, Sunitha. Thank you.
Hari Om, Sunitha.
The live stream is
Yes, I will stop.